Welcome everyone. I'm just going to let you know that this event is being recorded. Hope that's okay with everyone. My name is Lynn Wilson. I'm from Circular Economy Wardrobe, and I'll be moderating this event this afternoon, which I'm delighted to do for these fantastic organisations. And I'd just like to start by introducing who we have with us today. So we have Mairi from Sustainable Fashion Scotland and Liisa from Sustainable Fashion Scotland. We have Antoinette from Beira, and we have Cassandra from Zero Waste Design Online. And today they're going to be showing their film about their fantastic adventure at COP26 and the Generation of Waste exhibition, and then followed by questions from yourself, followed by a series of questions that we have prepared, and then we'll be able to open the floor to yourselves. As well as that, please feel free to use the chat if you have any comments or anything you want to share, or any questions that you have for the panel. And I'll do my best to pick up on those questions as quickly as I can. So, we're going to start by, Mairi, would you like to tell us a bit about the film before we see it? If you could just tell us what we're about to see, that'd be really great. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So yeah, I won't say too much because the video does explain quite a lot, but this was a film that was made just in the last 2 weeks, so during COP26, and it tells you all about how the generation of waste came about, why it came about, the most important messages, the process, and is an insight into the very stressful 2 months that we've had, but also a lot of the good work and the collaborations that made this possible. So it's been very nice for us to see it kind of all come together at the end as well, and I hope it gets you thinking, I guess. Well, let's start now.
Thank you very much. Yes, so we're ahead of schedule, which is brilliant because that gives us more time for questions and more time for discussion. And I think without further ado, yeah, if we just play the film, and that will be a great starting point. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Mairi and this is Liisa. We have been given a really exciting opportunity to present an exhibition or creative installation at COP26 this year in the Blue Zone. So it's a really good opportunity for us to educate the people with power about the impacts of fast fashion and some of the solutions happening around the world, and to educate them and influence their decisions on what action they take kind of going forward.
Generational Waste is an exhibit and a bigger project that is a collaboration between three incredible organisations, so Sustainable Fashion Scotland, Zero Waste Design Online Collective and Beira. It is a physical exhibit currently taking centre stage at the Blue Zone in COP26, and the aim of it is to powerfully communicate the impact of the textile waste, the extortionate amounts of textile waste, created by the fashion industry on both climate and social issues.
The issue of waste in the industry being as big as it is, I think most kind of everyday citizens don't realize the impact of the waste on the environment and socially as well, particularly on people in the global south. When you buy a garment, most people don't know that in the making of that garment, so in the design process, the garment production particularly, 15 to 25% of the fabric is wasted just when it's actually cut from the pattern. So immediately you have 15 to 25% garment waste, and that equates to about 60 billion square meters of waste annually based on 2015 figures. So the amount of waste in that process is huge, and most people don't recognize that. Some of the problems also are around waste ending up in the landfill. So most of the factories or manufacturers that make our clothes are located in the global south, so this textile waste, cutting room floor waste, actually ends up in the landfills in the global south. And often they don't have the infrastructure to really deal with that level of waste, and it becomes really problematic for the communities there.
The concept behind the methodology was to give more of a holistic view of the industry. So taking the voices of the key actors, so whether that be academics, and we have academics from various locations all over the world, we have companies from the global north and the global south, we have change makers, people that are lobbying governments, bringing all of these voices together to talk about waste in such a dynamic format as the exhibit and the videos really helped us pull together something quite comprehensive and holistic, and gave us really strong call to actions. It became very apparent that most of the blame for waste is placed on the consumer. The producer needs to take responsibility. They need to take responsibility for the waste that they create through that pre-consumer stage of the value chain. Without things like legislation towards extended producer responsibility, that's not going to happen. So this was a really important message to get across, to highlight that problem at that pre-consumer stage.
The physical exhibit is very towering, very dominating. We really wanted to make people stop and think, so it had a big impact. It is made up of 8 kind of pillars that are made from locker cages from reclaimed waste. This sits in they'll sit in a wooden plinth that again is also from reclaimed waste. It was really important to us. Each pillar represents a different stage of the Textile value chain, so that's all the way from design to end of life, from production to consumption. There are iPads on each one showing videos that we created with global voices talking about the problems in more detail and the solutions as well. At COP26, the exhibit is for the world leaders, for the policymakers, for the climate scientists that are going to be there. This is why we chose a bar chart diagram to communicate the really complex and messy data that we wanted to get across. Basically, although fashion is very complex and messy, we decided to zoom in and simplify this through a bar chart, through something very logical and linear, although fashion is definitely not linear. The people we wanted to talk to at COP26, most of them won't know anything about fashion because it's just not taken seriously and it's not valued. So it was really important for us to communicate this important message in a way that could be easily understood, and the bar chart acts as a good entry point for those who have a really basic or non-existent understanding of fashion.
It was quite a surprise for us from the beginning how much an exhibition like this would actually cost us money. We were expecting for a lot less, and once the first quotes came in for creating one, we're a bit shocked and a bit scared as well. So we quite quickly made sure that we reach out to any organizations that can help us with sponsorship and financing the exhibition. I just wanted to make sure that if there are any surprises, we're covered for them as well. Since the beginning, when we started planning generational waste, we quite quickly realized that it has a lot of potential, and we wanted to put it on a tour after COP.
What we'd love to do is take it on a kind of traveling exhibition, particularly looking at kind of universities and speaking to students and educating students about the impact of waste, because starting with the design phase is really important. Educating students the impact of their choices at the design phase, recognizing the waste that's created and the change that they can make at that point. I think one of the more important things is kind of in communicating to everyday citizens is the need for holistic change.
The approach to changing the industry must be holistic, as each stage of the fashion value chain is completely interconnected. If we continue educating about the linear value chain, where there are silos between each process, we won't solve this problem of waste in the industry. The Zero Waste Design online collective always highlights the need for this kind of interconnected understanding and holistic change.
So it's been a very intense 2 months creating this exhibit from nothing, basically. Luckily, we have had an incredible team on board. A few organisations have done so much, and we've had amazing support both from the team that have helped us build it, Lateral North, all of our contributors and sponsors as well.
you're on mute, Lynn.
Sorry, I've got a bit of a chesty cough. I had to cough earlier on. Wow, what a beautiful film for such a important and dirty message about the world, really. But what incredibly beautiful production and information within it. And you've talked a lot in the film about the journey and how it came about. But I'd like to start by asking you, Antoinette, why was it important to have this exhibition at COP26? If you could tell us a bit more about that. Thank you.
Sure. But first, I think we should say we were super delighted, surprised and humbled to have been selected, because we were one of 30 exhibits out of 4,000 entries for the Blue Zone at COP. And you know, and I think we've talked about it as a team, you know, in our opinion, COP26 really failed to truly consider the impact of the fashion industry. And that's regardless of its position as a polluter, whether it's fifth or whether it's second, it doesn't matter. The fact is it's having a major negative impact on the planet and people. And all too often, as Mairi pointed out in the film as well, this is disregarded. And it was really clear from our research and some of the key speakers that we spoke to, the key actors, is that, you know, fashion was this dream that's became a nightmare and it's now this perfect storm. I think maybe what's less considered about this is perhaps this idea of gender inequality, you know, the fact that it's seen as a woman's issue. Fashion is a throwaway thing that's really overlooked by leaders and decision makers. And they're all too often white, middle-aged men. You know, the fact that our own UK government in their net zero review didn't mention fashion. The only person to mention the impact of fashion at the official speeches at COP26 was Prince Charles, which when I met him, I actually thanked him for when I was during COP26. But essentially, we really hope that our exhibition and our call to actions, most importantly, that call to action at every stage of the value chain, highlighted, educated, and hopefully became a catalyst for change, Lynn.
Thank you very much. And could you just tell me a bit about when you were at COP26, were you there every day? How did that work? And were you able to meet leaders? Were you able to vocally get your point across?
Even though we were there, the only person at the team that managed to get into the blue zone was Mairi. I was in the green zone and also had a wee brunch with Prince Charles. But Mairi was at the blue zone, and unfortunately, even though we put a lot of time and effort into it, we didn't get tickets to go. So Mairi was there through Fashion Revolution. So she's probably better to answer that one, Lynn.
Thank you. Just before you answer that, Mairi, could you explain to us what the blue and the green zone were? Could you just remind us? Thanks.
Sure. So I guess at COP at COP they had the blue zone and the green zone. The blue zone being the kind of VIP, as they say, like delegates only. So I think there was around 25,000 to 30,000 people there throughout the whole 2 weeks, from all over the world, you know, policymakers, climate scientists, some activists, some, you know, community organisations, Fashion Revolution, Global Charity. They did get some tickets, they were invited there, although it was a bit exclusive, as we've heard. And then the green zone was more like open to the public. So that was at the Glasgow Science Centre. So there was a bit more public engagement there, lots of events, stalls, again, from people around the world. So that was the difference. The Blue Zone had an hour-long queue with airport security to get in. So it was a bit more intense, but maybe a bit more of a PR event as well. But I was glad, I was very grateful to go with Fashion Revolution and tried to make the most of it. So I did manage to speak to a few different people. We accidentally ended up hosting a fashion event because someone dropped out. So Karen from Fashion Revolution volunteered to host a kind of open discussion on why are we not talking about clothing. So I met a designer from India who came along to that, which was quite emotional, actually. I started crying twice in the Blue Zone. I saw Ed Miliband across the room, but it was a bit chaotic in that there was so much going on, but you weren't actually able to access a lot of like negotiations and meeting rooms. So although I was in the Blue Zone, it still felt a little unclear on, you know, how I could get involved, I guess. I think a few people had similar thoughts. So it was an interesting space to be in, but there was also a lot happening outside, which was just as, if not more, interesting and engaging, I would say, particularly for fashion.
Thank you. It sounds like you did an amazing job, though, really pushing forward and getting in there. Just carrying on with yourself, Mairi. So could you tell us a bit more about when you found out that you'd been awarded the space and what the application process was like? Because I noticed in the film you said, you know, you just had 2 months to pull this together. So could you tell us about that?
Sure. So we actually applied back, I think it was March 2021. The three organisations, I can't remember who first started it, but we came together and said, let's put in an application for the whole three of us, because they were encouraging collaborations for this creative installation space. But we only heard back at the end of August with confirmation that we'd actually been awarded the space. And then we'd kind of been told we would need to have it complete by the start or middle of October. So that was just about a month or a month and a half. And, you know, we hadn't pursued it up to this point because we all work on our own organisations. A lot of us have second jobs. We didn't have the capacity to kind of pursue it if we weren't going to have the space and be able to get funding. And we couldn't apply for funding before we knew we had been awarded the space because of, you know, the kind of prestige of it, I guess. So yeah, once we found out at the end of August, that was when we kind of put our feet on the pedal, I guess. And yeah, it was very intense. I was saying some of us were doing like 30 to 36 hours a week for the past 2 months, like unpaid, which I would not recommend. But because it was a short-term project, you know, it was okay. Yeah.
And what did that time involve? What kind of things did you have to do to get it to the stage you got it to?
Well, first of all, we were looking to acquire sponsorship and funding to see if it would actually be possible, because we knew we'd have to pay someone to build it, which was Lateral North in the end. We'd looked at funding first, had a few meetings with Creative Scotland and other people, and they were really excited about it. But obviously for funding, it takes a long time. So they said, you know, it would be 8 weeks minimum, which was after COP. So that wasn't an option. So we managed to get sponsorship from, you know, we made a little package saying this is what we can offer you, and the, you know, the impact it would have, and managed to get a few different organisations and companies on board. They were at the end. There was RATTI, Heriot-Watt, Zero Waste Scotland, Creative Informatics, who also funds some SFS research, and digital. And then Cassandra's son as well gave us £10.50 from his pocket money when he knew we were really struggling. So he's the little fox drawing at the end as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that was the first part, just getting sponsorship and then talking to people to help build it, getting the research, contacting people from around the world, making sure we were getting as many diverse perspectives as possible. I wish we had more time, so we'd been able to broaden that out, but we can expand on that going forward, which is good.
Yeah, it did look like there was an awful lot of people involved at the end and a lot of people to thank. How difficult or how easy it was coordinating all of these supporters, and I guess they were all volunteers as well.
Does someone else want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it was just a bit of a group effort. I don't think it would have been possible without all of us working together, you know, because we were all super busy with our own jobs during different times and had to kind of fill in for each other. And it was a group effort, really making it all happen. We all kind of pitched in different projects. We had kind of subgroups for, you know, for example, sorting out all the inserts for the pillars. We had a subgroup for that. We had a subgroup for, you know, the funding, and had little kind of teams working on different things. But yeah, we just kind of all jumped in whenever we could and whenever we had time, and just kept going until the end, pretty much. Yeah.
Brilliant. And just sticking with you, Cassandra, and going back a bit. So how did the three organisations come together? What was the catalyst? I know the application process, but what was it that drew you all together?
Well, I think like Sustainable Fashion Scotland really was the launching pad for that. We all were together with Sustainable Fashion Scotland. Liisa and Mairi and I were part of the kind of founding team, and then Antoinette joined. I actually met Antoinette during Fashion Revolution Week. I think it was 2020, right, Antoinette? And then Antoinette kind of joined the SFS team at that point. And we all are kind of interconnected and working with each other's organizations as well. You know, Mairi works for Zero Waste Design Online. I was kind of potentially going to do a zero waste project with Beira. There was a lot of kind of overlaps. And then it was actually my partner who brought the application to my attention. And then I just kind of thought, let's do this together because we're so much stronger, you know, in collaboration than we are on our own. So we just kind of had an initial meeting with all the organizations. And at that time, I was also in a studio that was located just in Finiston, you know, really close. So it seemed like a really good kind of launch pad for the event. Unfortunately, I didn't end up being there as when COP was happening. But yeah, I guess that was kind of how it came together.
And just at this point, I don't see any comments in the chat or any questions yet, but I do encourage everybody in the event to please, any comments you have or questions, I do encourage you to ask them. But in the meantime, so Cassandra, you mentioned some of the challenges there, and we've also heard from Mairi and Antoinette, but Liisa, what were some of the biggest challenges? If you could tell us a bit more about, see, potentially how it all came together in the view of those challenges.
Yeah, like you said, Lynn, time was quite a big challenge. Also, financing just in general was a big challenge. And one of the biggest ones was the fact that a lot of the things happening were quite unexpected. So once we had initially heard that we have the place, the communication was quite patchy, and quite often we got some requests from the production company from COP in only a few days that you need to present either this or you need to present that. So all of a sudden we all had to kind of start getting our heads thinking, how can we get these things done within a couple of days, or how can we move things alongside, or things like that. For example, all of a sudden we realized that because we had all the tablets that we wanted to have there, and that seemed to be quite a big issue. And once we had told them that we need them there because they're the biggest kind of communication method to get through to the delegates, all of a sudden we needed to do a path testing in just a couple of days, but we didn't even have the tablets yet. And apparently to get 8 tablets, you do need to have a business account. So things like that, and just trying to get them all done within as short of time as possible. It really, when you have a well-working group together, things just work a lot better because somebody always has a little bit of time or connections or something else. And yeah, things just work out in the end.
Fantastic. And so there are some questions in the chat that I also have in my list of questions here. And just before we move on to those questions, just one sort of final one from Antoinette about the sort of mechanics, the funding. How was the process of acquiring funding and sponsorship?
Well, and nobody's answering their phone to me anymore. I think they're just digging in my number because I think we collectively, we all just, you know, as we had no time, as Mairi said, we just had no time. The kind of last minute kind of confirmation of it made it really difficult. And we're not a big organisation, you know, we're 3 really small organisations, and to be selected for this was really amazing, really prestigious. So we had to really put some hard graft in, as Mairi said, we pulled together a pack and we spoke to as many people as we could, as many leads as we could. And, you know, I reckon, you know, in August from when we got told, you know, I was easily spending 30, 40 hours emailing people, sending people Zoom calls, trying to sell the concept, sell the project. And we were so lucky, like unbelievably lucky to have the people support us, because they did really not just want to be seen at COP. It was they really believed in what we were doing. They believed in the concept, they believed in the project, and they wanted to make a difference. And that was really important to us, just finding the right partners, the right fit. So people like RATTI Fabrics in Italy, and they've got like so many different elements that they're doing within their own business. And it was amazing to bring their story of how they are addressing it all the way through their own textile value chain was great. And they really put together some really nice things, like showing there how they impact at every stage of their textile value chain. And I think Miriam's here. I've seen her from Zero Waste Scotland. And again, you know, amazing, you know, just an incredible organisation that's doing huge, amazing things in Scotland. To have them is great. And also my university where I teach, I was very, very lucky that they were willing to support us and sponsor it. And the exhibit has now went to there, as it says in the chat. So it's brilliant that it's getting seen by students straight away. And I know I've had some students contact me already and said that they'd seen it and absolutely loved it and spent some time watching the different videos they were telling me today. So, you know, that's amazing. And that's what we all wanted. It wasn't, obviously the audience for this was the leaders and delegates at COP, but we wanted it to be bigger. But the process of the sponsorship for it, I can't say that I enjoyed it. It was really difficult and really, really time consuming. And also I felt quite responsible. I felt really responsible to these people that, you know, that gave us this money, that we deliver and we really talk about their stories as well, because it was an important part. We wouldn't be there, we wouldn't have created this if it wasn't without them, in all honesty. So we are very grateful to those that did support.
And if I could just ask, well, it's in the public domain surely, so it's not maybe a cheeky question, but can you tell me how much did the thing cost? How much did the whole project cost at the end of the day?
Oh, I think Liisa should take this one. Liisa's in charge of the purse.
Yeah, actually all of our kind of financing hasn't finished yet, but I would say it's in ballpark between 25 to 33,000 pounds.
And £10.50.
That's involved in it, yeah.
So it's really important that this is seen as an investment and has another life, which moves me on to the question for you, Mairi, and I see it in the chat from several people on the call saying, how can the public get involved moving forward? So can you tell us a bit about what's planned for the future? Antoinette, you touched on Heriot-Watt, but how can we all get involved now? What's happening moving forward?
So the big plan that is in progress is that we want to take the exhibit on a travelling tour across Scotland, maybe further afield to the UK if we can get the funding for that. That is the plan. I think the plan is it'll stay at Heriot-Watt until maybe February or March next year while we apply for funding and figure out next steps, hoping we can maybe apply for funding to maybe hire a project manager or something, just because, you know, we all have our own things, but we still want to be involved in it. So that's, you know, I think we've said a few different places online, if anyone wants to get involved or help with the development, please do get in touch. But until then, you can also interact with it online. We created a website, so at generationofwaste.com, you can view all the content that is currently on the physical exhibit as well. So that was important for us, so that people that couldn't see it, you know, in the Blue Zone, or if you can't get to Heriot-Watt right now, for example, you can still engage with that content. I noticed a couple of typos because we were quite overwhelmed at the time, but I'll go back and tidy that up at some point. But all the most important information is there, and we are hoping to add to that with kind of more examples of, you know, organisations and research and solutions around the world. So hoping that will keep going. We also have our Instagram and Twitter, where we're hopefully going to keep that going as well and adding new information. All the videos are available there and on our YouTube channel and on the website. So I think the videos are probably the best way for people to get engaged with it and learn. We also have our Love Not Waste campaign, which, again, we're very small, so it's not gone viral yet, but it's a good way if you want to kind of get involved. We're asking or inviting people to share a story about their cherished clothing, and, you know, just obviously we're all about waste, so we're just talking about how we can change our relationship with clothing so that we value it, take care of it, don't dispose of it and throw it away, so that it doesn't become waste and, you know, is a becomes, we love it and we care for it. So that's also on our Instagram if people want to find out more about that, and we'd love to share more of those stories and, you know, potentially use them as like evidence for research going forward, or for policymakers to show them this is important, people care about this, this is the impact clothing can have. That's actually why I started crying in COP, because this I forgot his name now, but the designer from India was talking about something really important to him and I got really emotional. So we know it is a powerful relationship, so we would really appreciate any contributions to that. I think that's the main things, the main ways to get involved right now, but we are hoping that the travelling tour will be not just at unis but colleges, maybe museums, community groups, that sort of idea, and we'll hopefully have some in-person events at those, maybe inviting people from the local communities to come and talk, or some of our contributors and sponsors as well might be part of that. So that is the plan. Yes.
It's a fantastic big plan, and it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for all of us who want to get involved. We're actually well ahead of time. And Mairi, I don't know if this is possible, but I noticed that some people have said they came in late and didn't see the film. And I was just thinking, I was wondering if maybe we could play it again. And whilst we were watching it again, people could think and reflect, and perhaps I've ran out of questions, so perhaps others could think of questions or discussion points that they would like to suggest whilst we're watching the film again, because I think it's such a powerful and beautifully produced film that another opportunity to see it would be really great. Is that easy to line it up on your side?
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Great.
I see a few more questions in the chat too, but maybe we can have them while.
Okay.
Do you want me to play the film and we can look at them while it's on?
Let's play the film and I'll gather those questions. And
okay. Hi there, my name is Mairi and this is Liisa. We have been given a really exciting opportunity to present an exhibition or creative installation at COP26 this year in the Blue Zone. So it's a really good opportunity for us to educate the people with power about the impacts of fast fashion and some of the solutions happening around the world, and to educate them and influence their decisions on what action they take going forward.
Generational Waste is an exhibit and a bigger project that is a collaboration between three incredible organisations, so Sustainable Fashion Scotland, Zero Waste Design Online Collective and Beira. It is a physical exhibit currently taking centre stage at the Blue Zone in COP26, and the aim of it is to powerfully communicate the impact of the textile waste, the extortionate amounts of textile waste, created by the fashion industry on both climate and social issues.
The issue of waste in the industry being as big as it is, I think most kind of everyday citizens don't realize the impact of the waste on the environment and socially as well, particularly on people in the global south. When you buy a garment, most people don't know that in the making of that garment, so in the design process, the garment production particularly, 15 to 25% of the fabric is wasted just when it's actually cut from the pattern. So immediately you have 15 to 25% garment waste, and that equates to about 60 billion square meters of waste annually based on 2015 figures. So the amount of waste in that process is huge, and most people don't recognize that. Some of the problems also are around waste ending up in the landfill. So most of the factories or manufacturers that make our clothes are located in the global south. So this textile waste, cutting room floor waste, actually ends up in the landfills in the global south. And often they don't have the infrastructure to really deal with that level of waste, and it becomes really problematic for the communities there.
The concept behind the methodology was to give more of a holistic view of the industry. So taking the voices of the key actors, so whether that be academics, and we have academics from various locations all over the world, we have companies from the global north and the global south, we have change makers, people that are lobbying governments, bringing all of these voices together to talk about waste in such a dynamic format as the exhibit and the videos really helped us pull together something quite comprehensive and holistic, and gave us really strong call to actions. It became very apparent that most of the blame for waste is placed on the consumer. The producer needs to take responsibility. They need to take responsibility for the waste that they create through that pre-consumer stage of the value chain. Without things like legislation towards extended producer responsibility, that's not going to happen. So this was a really important message to get across, to highlight that problem at that pre-consumer stage.
The physical exhibit is very towering, very dominating. We really wanted to make people stop and think, so it had a big impact. It is made up of 8 kind of pillars that are made from locker cages from reclaimed waste. This sits in they'll sit in a wooden plinth that again is also from reclaimed waste. It was really important to us. Each pillar represents a different stage of the Textile value chain, so that's all the way from design to end of life, from production to consumption. There are iPads on each one showing videos that we created with global voices talking about the problems in more detail and the solutions as well. At COP26, the exhibit is for the world leaders, for the policymakers, for the climate scientists that are going to be there. This is why we chose a bar chart diagram to communicate the really complex and messy data that we wanted to get across. Basically, although fashion is very complex and messy, we decided to zoom in and simplify this through a bar chart, through something very logical and linear, although fashion is definitely not linear. The people we wanted to talk to at COP26, most of them won't know anything about fashion because it's just not taken seriously and it's not valued. So it was really important for us to communicate this important message in a way that could be easily understood. And the bar chart acts as a good entry point for those who have a really basic or non-existent understanding of fashion.
It was quite a surprise for us from the beginning how much an exhibition like this would actually cost us money. We were expecting for a lot less, and once the first quotes came in for creating one, we're a bit shocked and a bit scared as well. So we quite quickly made sure that we reach out to any organizations that can help us with sponsorship and financing the exhibition. I just want to make sure that if there are any surprises, we're covered for them as well. Since the beginning, when we started planning generational waste, we quite quickly realized that it has a lot of potential, and we wanted to put it on a tour after COP.
What we'd love to do is take it on a kind of traveling exhibition, particularly looking at kind of universities and speaking to students and educating students about the impact of waste, because starting with the design phase is really important. Educating students the impact of their choices at the design phase, recognizing the waste that's created and the change that they can make at that point. I think one of the more important things is kind of in communicating to everyday citizens is the need for holistic change.
The approach to changing the industry must be holistic, as each stage of the fashion value chain is completely interconnected. If we continue educating about the linear value chain, where there are silos between each process, we won't solve this problem of waste in the industry. The Zero Waste Design online collective always highlights the need for this kind of interconnected understanding and holistic change.
So it's been a very intense 2 months creating this exhibit from nothing, basically. Luckily, we have had an incredible team on board. A few organisations have done so much, and we've had amazing support both from the team that have helped us build it, Lateral North, all of our contributors and sponsors as well.
Amazing. I think you're receiving some fantastic messages of congratulations in the chat. And I think at this point, I'd just like all of us to either unmute ourselves or use the symbol for a huge clap, for a huge congratulations for everything that you've achieved. It's really brilliant. And yeah, what a fantastic job. And some fantastic congratulations in the chat as well. But yeah, super well done on behalf of the whole of the fashion community who, like you say, it's not prominent on the agenda, on the global agenda, and it really needs to be. So fantastic. So, wow. So whilst that was on, I did manage to gather some questions, and actually I think it would be really great to hear those who have asked questions to answer them, to ask them themselves. And so I would like to ask Azada, and I'm so sorry for the pronunciation. Is it Azada Monzavi? Azada, would you like to ask your question to the panel?
Hi, of course, that was perfect. Don't worry about it. My name is Azadeh, and I'm a PhD student here at X University, formerly Ryerson University. We're in a name change process. Thank you, everyone. This is such a wonderful initiative. So I really want to thank you for that. And I've been looking forward to this event. First of all, I want to say it was great that you highlighted the fact that most of the time the onus is put on the consumer, I think. And as consumers, we all do try to be mindful, but sometimes it's disheartening because there isn't such a big impact we could make. But it was great to see and to highlight this for policymakers who are obviously have probably a bigger way of making an impact. So thank you for that. But I also just thought that it is true that we need to think of this from the design process. And although I'm more of the history side of things and not the design, I am affiliated with the Ryerson School of Fashion, and my master's was in fashion. So I was just wondering whether this is this video, and I think you sort of highlighted that after, is available to share with students, because I think it's an important video for them to watch and to learn from and inspire them to undertake such projects. But thank you again.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Sure.
Sorry.
Oh no, Lynn, you go on. Sorry, I just got excited.
No, please.
Okay, sure. Sorry, thank you so much, Azada. It's really nice to hear. I feel like I've emailed someone from Ryerson University. I can't remember their name, but they're doing incredible stuff. So thank you so much for coming along. And we will definitely be sharing the film. We actually just finished like subtitles today, so might go over and just double check everything's okay before publishing it and make sure the quality is good. But hopefully that'll be ready for like next week. And maybe we can talk to Scott Redesign and get everyone's emails that came here, or it'll be on our Instagram and Twitter on the Generation Waste, or on the website as well. So we'll definitely be sharing this. It'll be publicly available.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
And then we have a question. Eilish, you have a couple of really interesting questions, and I wondered if you would like to ask them, and I hope I've got the pronunciation. It's Aylish, Eilish?
Yeah, no, it's Eilish. I am a graphic design student at the University of Dundee, the art school there, and I'm currently working on a project for my elective module. It's art and science, and I'm kind of looking at the future of fashion. Things I'm kind of looking at are like digital fashion, and also like new materials. Like biomaterials that can, if they're kind of like thrown out or they're waste, they wouldn't actually harm the environment and might actually help the environment. And then also looking at tech, like imbuing it with technology, I code and program. So looking at, taking inspiration from how like plants and like mushrooms and things adapt to the environment. And I just wondered, like, what innovations have you seen that you're excited about in the next few years of fashion, next 5 to 10 years?
Shall I go? Honestly, that everything you've said, I'm like, oh, I'm really, they're all things that are huge, like massive big trends that we're seeing, not just, in the industry, but in a lot of the research that's happening behind the scenes as well. So it's great you picked up on that. I think from a business perspective, I think the trends are totally different. Like, it's like about degrowth. I mean, the buzzword now in the industry is talking about degrowth and looking at better quality, and whether that's, regardless of how you make it, it's, let's make less and make better, and just go back to the basics. And you know, I'm a believer we should stop talking about fashion and start talking about clothing. I know this is something Cassandra talks about a lot as well in her work. And, you know, I think that's really important. We need to come away from this trend-led high consumption model that essentially is causing us, you know, huge problems in terms of climate, huge problems in terms of social injustice. And you know, we have been conditioned into buying far too much stuff. And there is, you know, some amazing things happening, you know, and Stella McCartney obviously had her whole Milo or mushroom exhibit as part of COP26 and things like that. So there's so many interesting things happening. But we basically need to go back to kind of that basics and say we have to rethink the supply chain and rethink or it should be referred to as a value chain. We need to stop referring it to the supply chain. If we start thinking about the value that we create at every single stage and how, as Cassandra talks about, you know, in the film, you know, how at every stage impacts the next, and they're all interconnected, all interlinked, and this is definitely something that we need to look at as an industry, because it doesn't matter how many amazing bio products you produce, you know, if you haven't got the basics right, and you know you're producing far too many polyester t-shirts and you know then it doesn't matter what you do elsewhere. We need to really get the basics right first.
Thank you.
I don't see any more questions in the chat, but if anybody would just like to put the hand up, put your virtual hand up, I will come to you. Is there anyone?
I've seen one from Emma Miller. It was something about collaboration. That was a really good question.
Yeah, Emma is so delighted about everything that you've achieved, but unfortunately she's had to go. But she said, thank you so much for the enthusiasm and inspiration that you have shared today, which is fantastic. And there are so many other messages like that in the chat, which I know will be saved as part of the recording. But, or does anyone have any comments? I see some people on the call who were sponsors, and I can see people like myself who have been working in this field for the past 10 years and plus. Would anyone like to share anything or make any suggestions or offer their support at this point?
Hi,
Hi, Miriam.
Hi, yeah. Just say from the point of view of Zero Waste Scotland, you know, it's fashion something we haven't done enough about, and so for us it was really exciting to see you guys being so innovative, and the fact you got into the blue zone, which we didn't get into the green zone either. So you know, thank you guys for doing such an inspirational thing, and we're really excited to see what follows it with your world tour, hopefully, with the exhibit. So thank you very much and well done.
I just thought I would add what's really interesting from like where I've come from with zero waste is I actually learned about zero waste through zero waste fashion design through Zero Waste Scotland. I think it was when Lynn was there and she offered a kind of series of masterclass, and that's when I actually found out about Holly McQuillan's book and got in touch with her. And you know, 6 years later, we've started Zero Waste Design online. And so, you know, thank you to Zero Waste Scotland as well, because, you know, when you were focusing on fashion, that had such an impact, I think, in Scotland. So thank you both to Lynn and Miriam.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you very much.
Sadly missed.
Oh, thank you. And as an independent, I can say how frustrating it is. And I also, maybe I can name check her, Aileen McLeod on the call, and how frustrating it is that the textile programme was a priority and then not a priority. And yeah, but then from these lack of government direction comes phenomenal innovation, and which we've just seen today. And sometimes without that struggle, that we don't get that amount of creativity that has been achieved. And so sometimes it takes that to make something really wonderful. And so, but it just shows that Scotland has been working on this for a long time and has nurtured voices. And so that's brilliant to see those voices come to fruition. So it's 10 to 5. I wonder if anyone would like to have a last word. I'll just double check questions in the chat. I see lots of fantastic, lovely message from Aileen. Says, fantastic initiative, huge well done to the whole team and what you've done and achieved. Fantastic. Yeah.
There's a question there from Caitlin, I think, about, she said, is reusing waste an interest for you all to create fashion, just above there?
Is reusing waste an interest for you all to create fashion? Sorry, Caitlin has actually had to go, but what a great question.
Yeah, I think we all have a total interest in that, don't we? I mean, my whole business is built on waste, you know, that everything we make is from waste. And Caitlin said something about using food to waste to dye, use natural dyes. We're actually starting a project in Italy that's using the waste from the wine industry in Italy to dye some of our products. So it's dyeing waste products with waste from the food industry. So, you know, it's really building on that waste story. So we're just out in Italy looking at that. And, you know, there's something really nice about just, you know, deepening that story and adding levels of waste on top of waste to create something so beautiful and something that you will cherish as well. So definitely. And one of the things that we looked at as part of it was what the value of waste is and how much actually some of the stats that we produce from that are just unbelievable. You know, it's enough to give, you know, a whole textile community, you know, an extra month's wages a year, for example, from the amount of waste that's produced. So there is a huge scope for really revaluing waste within the industry.
Brilliant. So we have time for just some final comments. Would anyone, Liisa?
Yeah, I was thinking that it would be quite nice if we can all share kind of a surprising or positive thing from this project that we've done, because especially at Sustainable Fashion Scotland, we usually try to focus on a positive thing at the end. And if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind sharing mine at first. And kind of the really surprising thing for me was the fact that I knew that we can get some interest for the project because it was a COP, but the people who were actually interested especially were students, and for quite a long time sustainability has not been as interesting for students, and we just popped it out there and we instantly got a lot of support and wanting to help, and that was quite an inspiring thing. And it's especially inspiring that now that we're putting it on a tour, we know that students are already interested and they're already going to be engaged with the topic. So that's quite an exciting thing.
Brilliant. Antoinette, would you like to go next? Sorry, Cassandra.
Oh, Sandra. Surprising and a good thing. I suppose surprising thing is that I didn't think I'd ever work as hard as I did when I did my PhD, but this pretty much was on par in terms of intensity. So that was surprising. I didn't think I could do that again. But in terms of one of the really good things that came out of it, what I loved about it as part of the process from an academic perspective was bringing together all those voices and creating this kind of collaborative approach, kind of almost like using a bit of a sort of case studies and collaborators and getting those voices to put together the call to actions. And I felt that was something that was really took it to another level, took it from just being an educational piece into something that was quite holistic and quite dynamic, and had a kind of key endpoint for it, that actions that could essentially be put into use by the people at COP. So that would be great.
Cassandra, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think I'll second Antoinette in the surprise, just like how much work this was, how much work and how much money it cost to put together, like just incredible. I mean, yeah, I think we were all just exhausted for a couple of months. But one of the things that I guess one of the most positive things for me was, again, just the kind of collaborative element, like working with Antoinette and Liisa and Mairi and the kind of wider SFS team and our other teams as well, like was just incredible. Like we learned so much from each other and working from each other. And I think that like no one person can really solve the issue of waste. Like it has to be collaborative. We have to work together on this. We have to work together internationally, like, you know, from different cultures and different perspectives. And I think bringing that together, having the opportunity to, you know, help represent those voices and learn from each other was incredible. Yeah, so that's my big positive.
And if we can just have a last word from Mairi.
Sure. So one funny thing was, I think a month or two before we found out we got this space, I'd applied for a job, didn't get it. And one reason was I didn't have a lot of project management experience. And I was like, oh, I really wish I can get some more experience. But I didn't mean it like this. Like, but I've done it now, so I can put that on my CV. So that was good. And it was very enjoyable, a great learning experience. I think maybe a positive thing for me, I'm still processing COP. I think a few of us are still quite burnt out, but just the past couple of days, I realized even in that video, actually, when I say like something like, you know, we're at COP26 to talk to the people with power. And I was like, oh, like, you know, that implies that the only people with power are the world leaders and stuff. And actually during COP, I did get a bit down and disheartened, just, you know, how overwhelming it all was. And are we making an impact? And so it's been really nice to see all these really, you know, appreciative comments. But what I've just realized the past couple of days is that we all have power, and especially when we come together. So, you know, almost 2 years ago when SFS launched, like we were all kind of individuals then, we didn't know each other, and now look what we've done and what we've been able to achieve by working together. And not just this team, but as Cass said, you know, people from around the world and our sponsors. Again, like it wasn't just they wanted to be seen at COP, they actually believed in the message, and we do need investment in ideas and messages like this. So yeah, it just I've been feeling a little more hopeful again the past couple of days, remembering that we're not just waiting for the world leaders to change, and we actually, all the work we're doing is creating this new system change that we want. So that's maybe a nice hopeful thing. You know, we can all play a part and have a role in this change by working together.
And that feels like a brilliant place to end. And I'd just like to end there was a comment from Nikki in the chat. I can't speak at the Mo, I was on the road, but such a great demonstration of when people come together, creating community and amazing action. This is where it happens. And that's our national coordinator for Fashion Revolution. So brilliant to hear from Nikki. But final word from you, Mairi. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to end again by asking everyone to either have a clap reaction or unmute, and a huge clap for such an achievement. Well done. And thank you to everyone for attending. And this event has been recorded, so you will be able to watch it again if you would like to reflect on anything said here today. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.